One day, my husband said he was going to start sending money to his parents.
I need $1,000 every month.
$1,000? How in the world do your parents need that kind of money all of a sudden? I waited for him to say something, and after staring at me for an uncomfortably long time, he responded,
It's all filial piety, Kiara. I'm only repaying them for the kindness they did me. And in any case, it's my frickin' money, so you'd have no damn right to complain about anything.
This put the family budget under huge pressure, and as a result of how difficult life had become, I started working part-time at a nearby bakery. One day, I fell ill from the accumulated fatigue from working part-time and doing all the housework every day. But instead of being concerned for me, my husband said,
Don't you frickin' dare skimp out on the housework just because you're sick.
I was so disgusted that I felt there was nothing I could say to him, so I made a phone call to my parents-in-law. To be honest, sir, sending $1,000 every month is too much of a burden for us. But then, Mr. Madero said something I couldn't believe.
I didn't receive a single penny. Dear, are you sure you've been sending us money?
I was so shocked that I was at a loss for words for a considerably long time. This is the story of how my husband's sudden demands for sending money to his parents turned out to be a lie that hid a brutal truth, and how I found help in very capable people to exact my revenge on his betrayal. My name is Kiara, and I'm a 32-year-old full-time housewife. After graduating from university, I worked in the accounting department for the branch of a large electronics company, and that's where I initially met my husband, Luke. I met him when I was 23, and after 3 years of being a couple, we got married 7 years ago.
I've never lived on my own, and I'm not very good at all forms of housework, Kiara. But I'll bring home the bacon for us, and you can be a stay-at-home mom.
That's what my husband told me. We were 26 years old at the time. I did say the electronics company is large, but that's unfortunately a gross overstatement. I merely meant large in the sense that it has branches in cities that are scattered around the states. But that doesn't necessarily mean the life of an ordinary salesman working in one of the smallest branches in the company is anything glamorous. On the contrary, the salary was downright laughably low. To be honest, I was worried about whether we would be able to make a good living if we got married. The fact that I was half forced to quit my job halfway through my career didn't help very much at all, either. And it was especially unfortunate because there was talk of a promotion for me right when I got engaged to Luke. Once we started married life, however, despite my regrets, I felt that, in a sense, it was the right decision for me to become a stay-at-home mom. Luke could not do housework at all, just as he declared. He was so hopeless in that aspect of life that he didn't even know how to set the refrigerator to make ice cubes, or how to turn on the washing machine, let alone set it to wash and dry the laundry. That's why he never did any housework, or rather, I forbade him from doing any, knowing full well that if he did do such a thing. Additionally, Luke had never managed a household budget before, so I took care of it as well, and despite his small salary, I managed to make necessary compromises to save a little every month for the future. After a few years of living like this, one day he suddenly said at dinner,
I'm thinking of sending money to my parents.
Sending money?
Yeah. Mom quit her part-time job because of a back injury.
According to him, my mother-in-law, Mrs. Madero, used to work part-time at a supermarket, but during the last few months, something caused her to injure her back, and she had to be hospitalized. Quitting her part-time job had unfortunately become a must, and not only did this reduce her income to zero, but it also resulted in her having to go to the hospital to get physical therapy, which is currently taking a bit of a toll on her savings. The family's finances had become so tight that they had asked my husband to send money home. Since my parents-in-law's house was in another region of the country and neither my husband nor I could visit very often, we didn't know that such a situation had happened during the last couple of months. I had no idea, and I immediately felt a whole lot of sympathy for my in-laws. The Maderos were very sweet, very wise folk, and my relationship with them both was almost as good as were mine with my own parents. I was concerned for their predicament and asked Luke, how much do they need?
$1,000 every month.
$1,000? How in the world do your parents need that kind of money all of a sudden? My voice trailed off in surprise. The reason was simple. With that kind of expense, more than half of Luke's monthly income would disappear. Why do you need so much?
She needs the funds to go to the hospital, Kira. Surely you understand.
I mean, of course I do, but even so, does it really cost that much?
Of course. It's not just a treatment, you know? There's also the wheelchair to think about, and the medicine she's going to be prescribed, like painkillers and anti-inflammatories. Those cost money, too.
But I tried to protest again, but Luke glared at me and shouted.
How could you be so picky? Even my own mom and dad are struggling to survive. It's all filial piety, Kiera. I'm only repaying them for the kindness they did me. I stayed at home for a while after I got a job. It's only natural that I'm going to pay them back from now on.
That may be true, but we aren't exactly Jeff Bezos living in Bruce Wayne's mansion now, are we? Luke, be honest with me. Do you even know how much money you make every month and how much of that is spent on living expenses? If we sent your parents $1,000, we would barely be able to make ends meet. We also have to save up for when we have children in the future, don't we? Then he inhaled. I thought he was only going to heave a heavy sigh, but the exhale turned out to be an aggressive holler.
For the future? Just what are you insinuating, Kiera? Are you seriously saying that our child, who is currently unborn and has a chance that they will never, is more important than my own parents, who are in trouble right this very moment?
When I raised my eyebrows in shocked fear, he added,
In any case, it's my freaking money, and you're the one who stays at home all day, doing nothing much at all. You have no damn right to complain about anything.
What the hell do you mean, Luke Madero? I only stayed at home because you can't do any of the housework. You personally asked me to stay at home so I could take care of everything at home. He disregarded my rebuttal, tisked his tongue, and walked out of the living room upstairs into the bathroom to take a shower. From the following month onward, just as he declared he would, Luke began to take his cash card from the house on payday and withdraw $1,000 from the account we shared as a married couple. At first, I tried to talk to him again about how against the idea I was, but he was adamant about sending money home, no matter how many times I tried to persuade him out of doing so. But as he completely ignored me, I eventually gave up trying and instead started working part-time at a local bakery. But even so, the impact of a whole $1,000 a month on our family budget was pretty significant. Every day after my work at the bakery was done, with the owner's permission, I brought home a bunch of leftover bread, and before driving back home, I went to the supermarket to pick up whatever discounted ingredients I could find. And of course, there was the untidy housework waiting for me when I got home. But I devised a good system, and I continued to live in this manner, balancing out my part-time job with housework and errands, and trying my best to scrape by. After a few months, though, the exhaustion took a bit of a toll on my physical health, and I fell ill. I took the day off from work that day and lay in the living room couch all day long. I was awakened at night by the sound of Luke opening the front door. Is it that late already? Oh, what should I do for dinner, I wonder? Oh, my head. Yeah, I'm in no condition to cook anything tonight. Maybe we should get a delivery, or maybe I should ask him to go to a nearby convenience store to get us something. Thinking of these things, I got my heavy body up from the couch and headed for the living room. No sooner had Luke seen me that he flew into a rage.
Hey, what the frick is going on with dinner, eh? No way you forgot to do it, right?
I'm sorry, honey. I'm just feeling a little sick today.
And? I've been working late every night these days, and I'm so tired when I get home. Just because you feel a little under the weather doesn't mean you have any excuse to skip on your responsibilities.
He started to criticize me for slacking off on the housework, and not once did he utter even a single word of concern for my physical condition. By that point, both my mind and body were completely overwhelmed by an immense feeling of exasperation. It's hard for me every day too, Luke. Ever since you started sending such a gargantuan amount of money home, I've been busy with my part-time job and all of the housework.
A stupid part-time job at a local bakery is just baking bread, isn't it? I have meetings with clients every day. I prepare documents, and I propose ideas for sales every week. I freaking work incredibly harder than you do.
What are you talking about?
Okay, freaking enough. I'm going out to eat.
With these words, Luke stood up in a huff and stormed out of the house. I was beyond angry and disgusted. I even felt that there was nothing loving and endearing I could say to him anymore. I then knew that I had no choice but to go directly to my in-laws and talk to them about the situation. But I felt pretty sick that day, so I decided to call them tomorrow and hopefully arrange a compromise. Just as I told myself I would, the very next day I called my in-laws once my shift at my job was finished for the day. I had my parents-in-law's home phone number, but this was the first time since I got married that I had called them. This isn't to say I hadn't talked to them for 7 whole years. We visited them at least once every season every year. But calling them was something new. I really don't know why. I put the phone to my ear, a little nervous. The phone rang a couple of times, and then a voice spoke through.
Hello?
To my great surprise, it was Mr. Madero, my father-in-law, who answered the phone. It was a weekday afternoon, and I was expecting Mrs. Madero to answer the phone. I certainly didn't expect a masculine voice to greet me. Oh, Mr. Madero, it's me, Kiara. Kiara Madero, married to Luke? When I said this, Mr. Madero seemed pretty surprised, too.
Is that truly you, Kiara? What's wrong? What a nice surprise you calling me out of the blue like this.
I'm sorry, I just came to talk to you about Luke.
About Luke? Sounds serious. What is it, dear?
Mr. Madero replied, sounding a little apprehensive. I had taken the plunge and called him, but now that the time had come, I couldn't seem to get the words out of my mouth and into his ears. I thought you had work today, Mr. Madero. Is this your day off?
It just so happens that today is my day off in lieu of the sudden onset work I did during the holidays.
Ah, I see. I just couldn't muster the courage to begin the conversation that was supposed to be the highlight of the call, and just continued on with the monologuing. Is Mrs. Madero feeling okay? Then Mr. Madero told me about his wife's more recent situation.
Ah, yes. About her back. It's actually a lot better than it was a few weeks ago. She no longer needs a wheelchair as long as she has a cane, and she's visiting the hospital less often nowadays. And she's also recently restarted working part-time again. Because she isn't completely cured of her injury, though, she's doing mostly office work that doesn't require much physical labor. She was just at work today, actually. I had hoped she would take the day off to spend some time together, but she missed her friends at her job, and she's happy to be back. So, yeah, she's doing very well, dear. Thanks for asking.
Wait, what? I asked, completely puzzled. I'm sorry, sir. I just heard through the grapevine that she quit her part-time job because of her condition.
No, dear, she never did that. She merely took some time off, but she never wanted to quit the job in the first place. Good thing her boss is a flexible young lad. This cooperation really helped us out.
I was so confused. So the truth was that Mrs. Madero was never hurt badly enough to quit her part-time job? Did Luke lie to me? If he did, why in the world would he do that? As I was silently thinking about it, Mr. Madero's voice reached my ears once again.
So, what did you want to talk to me about? You said you had something to ask me? About Luke?
That brought me back to myself. I became certain that Mr. Madero's story would help answer all the questions I had. So, from the deepest, most remote recesses of my heart, I mustered up everything I had that could be some pathetic excuse of courage and forced the air out of my lungs as I said, "It's about sending you and Mrs. Madero money, sir."
Sending money? To us?
Yes, sir. To be honest, sir, sending $1,000 every month is too much of a burden for us. When I said this, Mr. Madero remained silent for a few seconds before replying with words that left me absolutely stunned.
We've never received even a single penny in remittances, honey. Are you sure you've been sending us money?
My vision went completely black. My breathing became shallower and shallower. Where was the monthly grand of money disappearing off to? Then, as if he understood what was going on, my father-in-law said,
It seems that you and Luke are having some problems, huh? Will you tell me everything? little by little. Take it easy, my dear, and we'll take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere until we settle this matter.
Mr. Madero's gentle tone and patient attitude reassured me immensely, and I told him everything that had happened. I told him that my husband had been taking $1,000 out of our joint bank account every month to send back home to help Mrs. Madero out. I told him that I had started working part-time because of how difficult our married life had become in terms of financial security. I told him how Luke looked down on me whenever I was too tired or sick to do the housework because of my part-time job. I told him all those things and many more things regarding the situation. After I finished telling him everything, Mr. Madero quietly, but very surely angrily, said,
So that's what's been happening this whole time? And here I was, hoping that he was taking good care of you. I'm so sorry, my dear. Seems like my son grew up to be the very person I educated him not to be.
Then he made me a proposal.
Why don't you conduct an investigation on Luke? We both know all too well that he's the kind of guy who will either get really angry and ruin a rational conversation, or refuse to talk to us about the serious matter at hand. I'm thinking it'll be better for all of us if we get the evidence ourselves, and use it well to drive him into a corner and get him to confess whatever sin he committed.
I thought that was a great idea, and so I decided to take his advice and hired a detective agency to investigate my husband's behavior. I thanked Mr. Madero, promising to keep him updated on how things were going, and hung up the phone. I immediately proceeded to research the nearest directive bureau and contacted them. I explained the situation to them, and we came to a very reasonable agreement. A week later, I received the results of their investigation, and it turned out that the actual reason why he was withdrawing a whole $1,000 from the bank was beyond my imagination. Luke had been having an affair. The woman whom he was having an affair with was a junior employee at his workplace. It seemed that after all the employees had left the office for home, while I thought he was working extra hours, he was actually doing the unthinkable with her for hours on end, every night. He said he was tired from working overtime every day, but in reality, he didn't do much work at all. I also found out that the gargantuan amount of money had mostly been wasted on luxury brand bags and cosmetics for the woman whom he was seeing. When I saw the results of the investigation, my husband's words and actions became crystal clear to me. He most likely never intended to send any money back home, and instead forged a devious plan where he would tell me that he was going to start sending money to his mother to help her out with her back problems, and would instead spend the money on the woman he was cheating on me with. Surely this would not be so easy to find out, since Mrs. Madero really was in bad condition at one point. I couldn't believe he would play the used family as leverage card to pay off the adulterous woman. I clutched my phone with an increasingly tightening fist and immediately reported the results of my investigation to my in-laws. Not just Mr. Madero, though. Mrs. Madero had heard the story from her husband and was furious. The three of us then began to devise a plan to punish Luke for his betrayal. It was during the afternoon of the following Saturday. Luke, who knew nothing about my plan with his parents, was still sleeping until afternoon. Around 1 p.m., he was awakened by the sound of the intercom ringing. I went to the front door and invited our visitors inside. Luke stumbled into the living room, rubbing his still half-asleep eyes.
Dad? Why? What are you...
Luke's eyes finally widened fully, or at least more than usual, when he saw his parents in the living room.
I have something important to discuss with you.
Mr. Madero's voice was so low that I couldn't imagine him being so mild-mannered as he usually was.
What is it?
Sit your ass down first. I made my anxious husband sit down and stormed over to him. Your mother never quit her part-time job, did she? Her back seems to be much better now, Luke. Sure, she still needs a cane, but she's recovered enough to be able to come here from so far away to discuss a very important matter. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? Once I said that, Luke's gaze turned away, as if he was guilty of something terrible. Luke, son, you don't realize how sad it makes me feel to hear you've been using me as the reason for your crimes.
No, it's not like that. This is... What difference does it make, Luke? We never received even a single damn penny from you.
Even when confronted by his wife and parents, he still refused to confess to his crimes so easily.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I lied. But the money is all for Kiara, guys. And I've been making investments, see? Yeah, I've been investing money in stocks. If I told the truth, me having a go at the stock market, we all know Kiara won't forgive me. She'd say something like, "What if you lost money?" So I kept quiet about it. But I did it because I was thinking of our future and wanted to increase our assets.
I was so disgusted by his pathetic excuses that I just blew up. If you've really been making investments, show me the proof right now. Which stocks did you buy? At what price? And how much money did you make off of stocks? Or did you really lose money instead?
Well...
It was so ridiculous to tell such a transparent lie. I even thought for a moment that I would continue asking him impossible questions and enjoy watching him get more and more panicked and make up some more lame excuses, but that's not going to happen. My in-laws had come all this way from afar to see me, so I had to keep the matter short for their sake. With that in mind, I held out the envelope I had prepared.
Whoa, wait, what's this?
You'll know it when you see it. Luke slowly and anxiously took out the contents of the envelope and instantly turned pale. We all already know everything, Luke. I'm divorcing you. Yes, indeed, inside the envelope was a divorce decree, along with many photographs proving that he had been unfaithful. Mr. Madero quickly snatched the divorce papers out of his son's pale hands and said,
"My dear Kiara, a ballpoint pen, if you please. My wife and I will be witnesses to the case." Wait, what? What are you guys doing? This is between us. You stay the frick out of it, Dad.
Luke quickly stood up to take the divorce papers from his father, but Mr. Madero grabbed his collar and pile-drived him into the ground. As my husband cowered, Mr. Madero said with an ominous tone of voice,
"This is only a matter between you and your wife, is it? How dare you say such a thing after lying your ass off, using us, your own parents, as your tools to adultery?"
That's right, son. You have no idea how much of a treacherous thing you've done. Lying about how you were going to spend the money you share with Kiara and cheating on her. Every one of these heinous deeds is unforgivable.
Frickin' damn it.
I put the finishing touch on my husband, who had lost all momentum by this point. Of course, I'm going to charge you alimony, which will definitely be more than you spent on the affair, so you better frickin' pay up.
Oh no. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Kiara. Please forgive me.
Luke shouted pathetically as he finally started to cry, but of course no one was there to help him out by this point. After that, with the help of my parents-in-law, Luke and I were able to get divorced without any problems. He was also disowned by his parents and went crying to the woman whom he had been having an affair with. But the bitch who had siphoned a ridiculous amount of money up to that point would never have gone for my ex-husband who had alimony to pay, so she easily dumped him on the spot. Furthermore, his workplace found out about the affair, and both Luke and his unfaithful lover were forced to voluntarily resign from their jobs under the claim that they had been unfairly receiving overtime pay for doing something completely unrelated. Even though the unfaithful woman was now also unemployed, I demanded alimony from her too. In this manner, Luke Madero lost everything, and the only thing he had in his name was a large amount of alimony. I, on the other hand, was hired as a full-time employee at the bakery where I worked part-time, and as of now, I've been promoted to manager of several stores around the area. As a manager, I make more money per month than my ex-husband ever did at the time, and I now enjoy a comfortable lifestyle every day. My ex-parents-in-law still contact me from time to time and continue to love me very much. And I love them back. They were really, really helpful in getting Luke the justice he deserved. And they made my life all the better. Mrs. Madero has recently recovered to the point where she no longer even needs a cane. I was relieved to hear that. I really hope to keep this good relationship with them in the future, as I work hard to have a successful career and a nice life full of happiness.